Hey, I'm MrRosaPony, consecutive challenger player for many seasons entering 1 EU in Hyperroll Set 8. So let's enjoy some high quality guides together. Welcome TFT Maniacs to this guide where I will show you 5 essential pro tips that you can use to win your early or to lose calculated and get your advantage later. So let's start with the first one. So when I talk about pre-game preparation, the most important part is, even though like many people are saying that hero augments determine your gameplay or whatever, before you start a game, you need to pick one comp and you're going to play this comp and you're trying to play this comp. Of course, there's many situations and variances where this comp actually it will not work and you will need to pivot. But your highest success rate in TFT Ranked is by picking one comp before you're starting. And there are a shit ton of tier lists out there, but I don't recommend going for them since Meta TFT is up now. I posted a tier list by myself for more than 1 year, and it's not worth it anymore since we are able to get that many comps analyzed with really good stats at Meta TFT. So if you don't know what comp to play, just look at Meta TFT and then look what you're most comfortable with. So we will take a look at Brawler Jax here just to make an example what pre-game preparation is actually about. So we can see this right here. For the filters, I would always recommend to use only the last day since the meta changes fairly quickly. And you want to have a decent amount of data, so I would include Grandmasters and Challenger, especially since the skill gap is not that high between Grandmaster and Challenger. Same goes for items. So on the same website, you will be able to go and take a look how high is the win rate of the items, how does those items fit into my comp, and you can check out if your champions, for example, are AP. You can see right here what is the best AP component. And by this, you can, for example, answer yourself the question, is Druid Gauntlet rather than Staff Cap? What should I build if I have the decision, right? And with those stats, you can build up everything step by step. Same goes for champions. So often in the early game, you may ask yourself, is this trade actually worth it? Because I only have like 2 1 cost units that are not even 2-star, or is a 2-star unit without a trait better than like a 1-star? All the situations, you can take a brief look right here. The higher the tier is of the units, the more likely they are that they fit in single. And the reason why I personally don't like to play with tier lists is because they are giving you a picture like this. They mostly have really little, or just like for one situation, the information, how to even get to the situation. Because TFT provides you is a hard learning curve with pivoting early game, and TFT is a lot of variances. And the best players juggle all those variances. And if you're only trying to copy a build, or maybe even a position that you see right there, you will fail and not get high rank. So, for example, people that copy a tier list build like this, they will put Sejuani in the middle. As this is okay for the mid game, this is completely unviable for the end game, because if Sejuani is in the middle, her stun will not catch the carries that are usually located in the corners. So if the enemy carry is positioned somewhere on the right side, Sejuani needs to move and take Renekton spots, so you're actually able to CC the carry. That's why I don't like tier lists. And if you're interested in it, we will also make a full positioning guide for set 8. How to position, how to maneuver, how to outplay players. So stay tuned and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. So if we're talking about the early game, this is something where probably everyone is able to transition into an admin brawler build by replacing Ashe with Jax and already having 2 brawlers up, and as soon as you can, just putting 4 brawlers with the Jax and just any backline carry if you even find one or need one, or just an additional tank. So this is fairly easy, but you will not always get openers like this, which means you need to learn how to, for example, transform an opener like this into the comp you actually like, and you always have to evaluate if this comp is worth pivoting to or not. So let's make an example just right here. This is what it looks like. Doesn't look really like a Brawler Jax game, but you can pivot like this, where you will use the Wukong and the Brawler to keep your defender, add a LeBlanc for the Lux, and you already have the ability to add Brawler via Blitzcrank and take a look at the admin trait and see if it's viable or not. So all those little variations, it's really important to do them in advance before you actually start playing Ranked. Otherwise your MMR will suck and you will not climb really fast. If you need help with any of this pre-game preparation, I will also offer coachings, which are going to be fairly cheap, where you can pick one comp and we will go through every single detail, especially what you will see right here. So what most guides and tier lists are missing are suboptimal items. Many people are not getting rank 4 or higher, for example, because they're doing mistakes in the early game by not slamming suboptimal items and then just ending up like 5th and losing LP, even though if they would have just slammed a suboptimal item at an earlier stage, they would have been able to go to rank 4. So this is why I always take a look and make sheets like this, where I see what are different build options I can use for my carry, and if I have an item that is core. For example, if you're looking at Jax, Ginsus is an extremely good item, and I would say it's core on Jax. It's really important. But if you're having, like, for example, the Jax Augment that is stacking attack speed, you don't need it. So you could play a bit like this right there, and with the Jewel Gauntlet get more damage output. And yeah, thinking about stuff like this in advance is really important, and it will squeeze out those LPs and will turn a lot of your 5th places into 6th place. What's also important is that you always think about, if I don't hit my carry, like, nothing is worse than not hitting your class. But what's even more worse is, while you're rolling down, not picking up units that can stabilize your HP by holding the items of your carry until you're hitting them. So for example, if we're looking at this Jax right here with Ginsus and Jeweled Gauntlet, you would not be hitting Jax, well, but maybe you were able to pick up some Kaisers along the way. And if you make a Kaiser 3-star, that costs you 9 gold, but you can sell her for 8 gold. So with 1 gold investment, you may be able to squeeze out a lot more HP by picking up those champions along. And when you're rolling down and you haven't thought about it in advance, you will miss all those champions, lose HP, and therefore lose LP in the long run. And this also goes for alternative carries. So for example, let's say you want to play Jax, and you're hitting a lot of AP items, but your admin trait is garbage. So Soraka is not really providing you the best value. So maybe your items are well enough, but you're hitting some misfortunes, so you can play misfortune instead. Or what happens if you are able to not able to get any AP items? So you stack your Jax, you've bought some tank items on the Riven as an example, but then you're only ending up with 80 damage items. So maybe you want to flex in a Velvet instead. So you should make sure that you know what items are working on a Velvet. Do I need to pick up this class while I'm rolling along? So it's really important that all those informations are being covered. So when it comes to augment manipulation, it's really important that you understand the basics behind it and how it actually works, so how the game is coded. And this is the same for Hyperroll and normal ranked play. So in Hyperroll, it is at stage 5.1, where the game will look at all the active traits that you have active. So here it will be admin and civilian and brawler. And I am looking for a Jax augment, which means Jax is brawler. So I will just place all the brawlers I got into my board. If you're looking at normal ranked, you can do this as well at stage 3.1 and 4.1. And even though if you're not like streaking or win streaking, it's worth to like weaken your board just to have the correct traits available. Now I am looking for a hero augment since I don't have one yet, and I have only brawlers in there, and we are at the second one, which means I'm either getting 2 cost or 3 cost brawler augments. And if you only have 2 of each, so like brawler that are 3 cost, which are Riven and Jax, then you sometimes get a threat unit as well. Also note that when you're having like the support augment of Jax in the first one, your chances to get the damage augment of Jax in the second one are really, really high. So if you only have brawler synergies in, then it's definitely a must go for. It's, it is sometimes a bit risky, so my recommendation is when you see an augment that is fine, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it's usable for your comp, always use it. Don't go greedy and reroll unless you're in a perfect situation like this, where you know that you're gonna hit it based on the math. So set 8 has one major change that you need to understand to play a really good early game. And this means that upgraded units are better than perfect items. It makes no sense anymore to greed for perfect items. Always slam suboptimal items if you can to prevent losing health. And the reason why this is, so let's make it up at an example of Ashe. If she's 1-star, she has 55 AD. And if she's 2-star, she has 83 AD. So she's getting about 30 AD if you're doing her 2-star. Then if we're looking at the items, for example, Deathplate, it used to give 40 AD flat. Now it only gives 40%. So, and since all the items were changed from flat to percentage-wise, means you need to have a good multiplicator. So if you're looking at, let's say it gives 50%, then it's easier to calculate. So right here, the Deathplate would only give us a total of 27.5, while here it would give us a total of 41.5. So all the items are scaling on your star level of your champions now. And the higher the star level, the better. So the most optimal damage in the early game is always 2-star units with items that are somewhat decent for the class. So if it gives AD and it is an AD carry, then this is perfectly fine for the early game. The only exception is if you're having really like a champion that needs a specific core item to work. So like for example, blue buff on Zoe that can't be distributed there, you have to greed for it. But other than that, slam suboptimal items in the early game. To understand the full power of streaking in Hyperroll, I made you this little table right here. And it's important to note that we are talking about loose streaking here and doing this on purpose. Compared to win streaking is always good. If you're able to win, you can play your strongest board, always go for it. But loose streaking has a really, really high potential here. So the way this table works is here you're seeing the stages. Here you're seeing your HP that you're having. If you're only losing by the end of the stage, here you will see the lose streak gold that you're getting. And here you will see how much underground stacks you could farm if you find underground early. So basically the rule is if you find underground early, that means in stage 1, 2, early 3, then you will always play underground and go loose streak on purpose. If you see and scout that other people are playing underground as well, you will position your underground damage dealers like Ezreal, Kayle in the front and your tank like Vi in the back, so you're ensured to lose against the underground players as well. This way, if you find it in stage 1 and 2, you will be able to get a level 3 haste by stage 5 of having 10 HP left in the end, which is a total of 3 lives at that stage. So you're more than good. And 3 haste underground is already amazing. You have the chance for radiant items, which give you almost a guaranteed top 4 if you find a 2-star carry to go along with them. And you're getting usually a bunch of gold that, paired with the lose streak gold, always guarantees you to hit your 2 stars at stage 6. So this is a real good play. If you find your undergrounds at stage 3, then never go higher than haste 2. This is really important. Don't treat for haste 3. Just take your haste 2 and call it a day. The only exception to this is if your underground units are actually upgraded and you have items to be able to win streak with your underground. As long as you're able to win streak with your underground, I always recommend putting underground in if you don't lose any HP, but this is obvious. But make sure that if you're win streaking, you're calculating correctly, because if you're win streaking, you're only getting 4 stacks instead of 6. So when we are talking about early game positioning, you often come across boards like this, or maybe a board like this. This is pretty standard. This is what most of the people are doing. And if people are scouting in the early game, they usually scout really fast and only see if the carries are on the left side or on the right side, for example. And you want to use this behavior that most of the players are doing to your advantage. So what you could be doing here is, for example, before your round starts, you're getting new into the round, you position them to the right side. Then just 1 second before, you're putting them back on the left. So in case he has a hacker, he's going to jump into the wrong direction. What you can also do, if people are using hacker, for example, in the middle, you never want to have people grouped up like this, because they will get double damage by AoE, like Lux, for example. But if you do like this, it's different, but you can also go like this. And if you're positioning like this, and you're having against a Talon, for example, the Talon will jump on the Lux and not on the Lulu that is carrying your item. So you will get more damage output overall. And yeah, just to finish this build right here, Wukong, for example, should be solo. So he's getting all the resistances by his thing. So this is just some minor positioning for this specific example, but this goes along for everything. So as soon as you start, you put everything in the back to the right side, or stay on the left and then push it to the right. This is when you don't specifically scout against an enemy. So this is really good if you're maybe low on time and stuff like this. And as soon as you get used to it, it will come automatically and you will get slight advantages. What's also important to note is if you think your board is weak and you don't want to be spread, so that means you want all the focus on one unit. So what you could also do then is a positioning like this. So if the person on the right side has positioned and you're positioning like this, all 4 units will go onto the middle unit he is putting. Almost all people have 1 unit in the middle. In this way, you can use the damage of all 4 to kill this unit and then win the fight outnumbered. This is really handy in the early game and not many players are currently doing it.